Houston. Houston, we have a problem. DJ Apollo has landed. I repeat, DJ Apollo has landed at Hitmix 88.9 WEIU.
Welcome to the Tales of Music and Film podcast. My name is DJ Apollo, or aka Christian Taylor, and boy, am I super excited today. We are going to be reviewing one of my favorite movies of all time. This film is an absolute 80s cheese fest, and I am here for it, and we will get to it momentarily. I just want to say thank you for clicking on this recording. This is going to mark episode number 49, and I will be doing this one solo, so let's get to it. The movie I'm going to be talking about today is one of my favorite John Carpenter films, Big Trouble in Little China. I absolutely love this film, man. I love it. The film was released on July 1st, 1986, and the director, of course, was the legendary John Carpenter, who is famous for films such as the original Halloween, the 1983 classic Christine, and he's also directed Escape from New York. And Kurt Russell and him have actually worked together many times. Kurt Russell plays the main character, Jack Burton, in this film. Kurt has worked with John Carpenter on The Thing, Escape from New York, the Elvis miniseries, Big Trouble in Little China, and then Escape from L.A., which came out in 1996. So they've worked together around 5 to 6 times, and what a partnership it was. Let's see here. The screenplay was written by John Carpenter, David Z. Winston, and Gary Goldman. The music was composed by John Carpenter and Alan Howarth. And John Carpenter is very famous for making music for his own films. Like, he did the entire soundtrack for the original Halloween. I also believe he helped create the theme for Christine. Don't quote me on that, but the guy is really well known for making his own music. Like, I have he did the soundtrack for all 3 of the Blumhouse Halloween films that came out over the last couple of years. And I own the Halloween 2018 soundtrack. I recommend you listen to some of the music on there just to give yourself an idea. You know, this man knows how to make very good music for a horror movie. But John Carpenter is one of my favorite directors of all time. I love his films, and there's still many I have yet to see still. I still need to watch They Live. I still need to watch Escape from New York and Escape from L.A. Have not seen those yet. Those are like up there and stuff that I need to get to very, very soon. The movie was on a budget of $25 million, and unfortunately the film did bomb at the box office. It only made $11 million, so that's sadly kind of a running theme with some of John Carpenter's films, because we all know the famous incident where The Thing came out in 1982 and it bombed at the box office, and Carpenter lost his film deal due to that film tanking. But just like The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China got a lot more attention once the 21st century started. Like, I have watched a ton of people do reaction videos where they've watched the movie for the very first time, and they absolutely love it. So this film is getting a lot more love now. It's just like, I just often wonder, you know, like, how come this and The Thing bombed at the box office? Because both these films for me are 80s masterpieces. Like, The Thing, I consider it to be one of the greatest horror films ever made. And Big Trouble in Little China is about as 80s as you can get, and that's not a bad thing. This film is a masterpiece. And it's like one of those films you can just sit back and just enjoy it for what it is, and I love it. Every time I watch it, it's like I'm watching it for the very first time, but I just genuinely wonder. It's like, I feel like, because a lot of people say, for example, that The Thing came out at the wrong time because, you know, that year you had E.T., which I don't understand. Like, that film for me was hot garbage. I did not like E.T. at all. And I don't understand why that one did so well and then The Thing bombed. I mean, I don't know. It's just like people wonder. I just wonder. It's like, was John Carpenter just ahead of his time? Did he release this? Was it like the right film but at the wrong time? I mean, I don't know. We'll ever really know. But I just generally wonder, like why these films didn't do so well, because they are amazing. But let's see here. So to give a quick summary of the plot for you, here it goes. Kurt Russell plays hard-boiled truck driver Jack Burton, who gets caught in a bizarre conflict within and underneath San Francisco's Chinatown. An ancient Chinese prince and Chinatown crime lord has kidnapped a beautiful green-eyed woman who is fiancée of Jack's best friend. Jack must help his friend rescue the girl before the evil Lopan uses her to break the ancient curse that keeps him a fleshless and immortal spirit. And there you go. That's the whole plot of this film. And that's really what it is. And the plot is actually very simple when you think about it. And that's not a bad thing at all. And up next, I'm going to name off some of the cast members of this movie. So, of course, we have legendary actor Kurt Russell playing Jack Burton, one of the best male leads I've seen in a film. And up next, we have Dennis Dunn, who plays Jack Burton's friend, Wong Chi. And up next, we have Victor Wong, who plays Egg Shin. And then there's James Hong, who plays David Lopan. And we have the main female lead in this, Kim Cattrall, who plays Gracie Law. And lastly, we have Susie Pai, who plays Mo Yen. And that is basically the main lineup for the whole film. Like, there's a few other side characters, but really those are like the 6 main people of this film. And right off the bat, what I love about this film, to be honest, is just like this film kind of makes fun of a lot of things that we've come to see in a lot of films. Like, for example, like Jack Burton's the main character in this, but like he gets sidetracked a lot throughout this whole thing. Like, the film has a running joke with him, just kind of showing like how useless he really is in a fight. Like, he's the dude's a normal civilian. Like, he knows nothing about, how to fight, and it's a running joke throughout the entire film. And Dennis Dunn's character, like, if you think about it, he's kind of the main character in this, because like he kicks butt the entire film. He beats the crap out of all the bad guys, and by the time Jack tries to get in on the action, he's already finished the situation, so there's something left for him to do. Like, Jack has his moments where he shines, and overall he was a pretty useless character. And I think that's one of the best things about this. It's kind of showing, okay, like, he's our main lead, but he's kind of a dummy. But that's not a bad thing. I mean, like I said, I consider that to be extremely funny. Like Jack Burton is such a funny character, and it's just like the minute we're introduced to him, like literally the opening shot of this film is him, driving down a dirt road, heading for San Francisco. And like we get these funny moments of him using his radio, and he's just talking into it. He's like, I'm talking to whoever's listening out there. Like, he's using his CB radio, and I'm like, I swear, this man was a podcaster before a podcaster was a thing, because he's just going off like, I know it's a pretty awesome planet we live on. You have to be crazy to think we live alone in this universe. And then he starts going on this other thing where he's like, listen, like, I told my last wife, I said, honey, I never drive faster than I can see, and all that, it's all in the reflexes. Just like, dude, this film is it just has some of the best dialogue I've ever heard in a film. Like, there's this funny bit later on where, like, Jack Burton's talking with Gracie Law, and, like, Jack's taking him and some of the other people to break into the cartel's facility to rescue Wang's girlfriend and some of the other people that were kidnapped. And before they leave, Jack, I'm not kidding you. Here's what Jack says. All right, all right, everybody, keep the home fires burning. If we're not back by dawn, call the president. It's just like, what is this dialogue, you know? And it's just like, it's the funniest, it is the best dialogue ever. And I love it. I love it so much, man. Whoever was involved in writing the dialogue from this, that's an Oscar-worthy thing. And, a little fact about this film is that Kirk Russell was actually very sick while they were filming this. Like, I actually listened to the commentary track that him and John Carpenter did for the movie around 2000 or 2001, and I remember Kirk talking about, like, during a lot of the scenes, like, he was running a temperature of like 104. Like, there's many scenes where he's like really, really sweaty. And I think in those scenes, you can tell that he was really, really sick. But you can't really tell, to be honest. Like, he sounds fine. So, I mean, other than the sweat, you know, it's just like he looks like he's A-okay. But, man, I cannot imagine trying to film a movie when you're that sick. Like, man, that must have been, you know, kind of a miserable experience. But... And to go back on what I was saying earlier, it's like another thing that this film kind of makes fun of. It's like Jack pursues Gracie Law throughout most of the film because he really has a huge crush on her, yet he won't admit it. And what's pretty funny is, like, the film, I think, kind of jabs at the cliche of, like, oh, the guy gets the girl at the end of it. But at the end of this film, you know, Jack actually decides to stop pursuing her, and he kind of lets her go in a way. Like, when he takes off, you know, heading back out on the road and says goodbye to everybody, like, they're like, are you gonna kiss her goodbye? He just smiles and says nope. Then he just walks out the door, you know. I just kind of feel like that was a jab at, you know, the cliche of, like, the main guy and the main girl kiss at the end. Maybe the camera, like, pans away while they're doing so, and then the credits start rolling. And this film kind of, like, you know, made fun of that cliche, and I loved it. That's kind of like what I was kind of saying earlier. It's just like, this film is very unique because it makes fun of the stereotypical things that we see in a film like this. And another thing that I really loved was the effects in this thing. Like, one of my favorite scenes in this is where Jack Burton and Long are in his semi truck trying to chase down the bad guys. Cause, like, what happened was Jack drove Long up to the airport to help to pick up his fiance who was flying over to the States, and they were going to get married, and Jack volunteered to drive him up to the airport. And when they were waiting in line, that's when Jack meets Gracie for the first time, and then they're ambushed by thugs, and they kidnap Long's girlfriend, and then they chase after them in the semi truck, and this leads them, of course, to the Chinatown in San Francisco. And they're driving down a street, and then Wang yells to go left now, and then they drive down this alley. And I love this little trick they do with movie magic, where they're driving down the alley. It goes from real alley to the set alley. And I loved that little trick they did of, like, it snaps to the next shot and it looks like it's part of the alley, but it's not. And I love that little bit of, like, Hollywood magic that they did there. And kind of going back to the actors for a minute, I think one of the main reasons I love this film so well is just the cast. Because, like, Kirk Russell, for example, it's just like, dude, the guy is a very underrated actor. Like, he does an amazing job. Like, dude, he's played some of the best male leads I've ever seen on film. You know, like McCready in The Thing and Jack Burton are just a couple of examples. Like, dude, this guy... Like, he played Herb Brooks in the movie Miracle about the 1980 hockey team that won the Olympics. You know, like, this guy knows how to play these, like, I guess, charming male leads that you want them to survive all the way to the end of the film. You know, and he's a fantastic actor, and his performance in Big Trouble in Little China is nothing but pure amazement. Like, I'm actually thinking about maybe cosplaying as Jack Burton someday whenever I go back to the horror convention, Flashback Weekend, that I love to go to. But another thing that I really loved about this film really is just like the visuals, because like there are so many amazing visuals and effects in this. Like there's this really cool scene, right, of actual like stunt work where you have these two different teams of assassins fighting each other in the alley, and Jack Burton and Wang are just sitting in there watching, and they're beating at each other, they're throwing each other into windows and glass, they're fighting each other. Like there's real like stunt work going on here. Like this is like for real, and I love the way it was all like choreographed and everything. It's just, I love it. And going back to the dialogue, man, like one of my another favorite scene that I love throughout this whole thing is the scene where Jack Burton kills the main bad guy, who Lopan, because by this point he is back to a full mortal. He's fully alive again, because apparently throughout the whole film he was like half ghost or something. And Jack tries throwing his knife at him and misses. Then he's just like, nice knife, picks it up. He's like, goodbye, Mr. Burton. He chugs it. Jack straight up catches the knife, throws it back, and he nails Lopan right in the head with it. And, oh, dude, it's so cool. It brings home to what Jack said earlier about it's all in the reflexes, Oh, dude, that is like one of the best, like, villain death scenes I've ever seen. And just to clarify, I mean, just like, this movie isn't for everybody. Like, me and my mom watched this movie together like a month or two ago. She didn't enjoy it very much. She said it was very cheesy, and I think she may have thought it was a little dated. And I'm just like, how can you say that? This film is cheesy in the best way. Because the reason why I like this film so much is because I was raised an 80s kid. Like, my entire childhood, like my childhood playlist, like, let's take a look at that for a second. The Indiana Jones films, Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, The Blues Brothers, Breakfast Club, The Adventures of Babysitting, Lost Boys, Stand By Me, The Outsiders. I watched all those growing up. It's just like my whole childhood. Like, I was really raised an 80s kid. Like, some of my favorite video games when I was a little kid was, Galaga, Pac-Man. I played those a little bit, and I took a lot of inspiration from 80s films. So I think it's only natural. Like, of course I would love Big Trouble in Little China. It's like, it's one of those films where it's just like, pick a film that defies, a decade. I would use this as to define the 80s, because this movie, it's like, you don't have to take it seriously. It's like, it's a perfect feel-good film. Something you can just sit back and watch and just have an absolute blast with it. Like, you don't have to really think about it. You just sit back and enjoy it for what it is. And it makes you feel really good, It's like you're watching it with how, like, over the top everything is. It's just like, you love it. I feel like it's really impossible to dislike this film in a lot of cases, And I just absolutely love this film. And I think the next part I want to get into is just like the costumes, okay? Because, like, man, the makeup and costume department really went all out in this. Like, the monsters that we see in this are some of the best, like, puppeteer or like costume work that I've ever seen. And I just love the amount of detail that they put into it. And you would just have to see it for yourself to fully understand. It's like, dude, this film has aged like fine darn wine. It's a timeless masterpiece for sure. Now, keep in mind, even though I love this film to death and I have nothing but the highest praise for it, there are a lot of things about it, like, especially around the story, that I can't help but think about. So it's like, first of all, it's like, okay, so not long into the film, Jack and Wong have the idea of, disguising themselves as like utility workers or something, and they sneak into the facility to get the people back that the cartel kidnapped, or like the gang of bad guys that kidnapped the people. So they go in there acting like they're utility workers, and they make it through security, no problem. They find a secret elevator, and they go down, and they realize the whole thing was a trap, and the elevator gets filled with water. And I love how apparently, you know, they are able to open up the elevator and swim out of it, and then they're captured by the bad guys. They have them strapped down in wheelchairs, and the bad guys could literally kill them right now. Boom, problem solved. But Lopan, the main bad guy, just decides to have them locked up in a room with no guards. And I like how they didn't check Jack to make sure he didn't have his knife or any weapons, because they lock him in a room with no guards. Jack's able to break out of his wheelchair and get his knife out of his boot and cut himself free, and then he cuts Wong free too. So it's just like, okay, this group of bad guys are some of the worst henchmen I've ever seen. Why didn't you make sure that Jack didn't have any weapons on him? And it's like, why are you keeping these two alive? Like, you're making it way too easy. It's like, why are there no guards? You know, it's just, like I said, you have to expand your disbelief a little bit when you're watching this. But there are so many times that Jack and the others could have been killed, and the bad guys would have won. But just the way this is written, it's just like, Lopan, all you had to do was have them killed. You had them captured. Why didn't you kill them? Because Wong says he must have plans for us, otherwise we'd be dead. I'm just sitting here like, what plans? All he has to do is order the henchmen to shoot you both, then the problem's over. He wins. And same goes for their other friends try to break into the facility as well, and they get captured. And then they're sent with the other people they kidnapped. It's like, why not just kill them too? Like I said, you have to expand your disbelief a little bit, but there's just some plot holes in this that you're just kind of like, okay, that was kind of a dumb move. And some other things that don't make any sense to me, it's like how some of the henchmen act. Like Lopan's second in command, he apparently is a suicide bomber, because at the end of the film, when Lopan's killed, he's literally like, his second-hand man's like one of the last dudes standing, and Jack and the other are sitting there waiting for him to make a move, and then he starts spontaneously combust, like his whole body starts deteriorating, and he literally turns himself into a bomb, and they all just run away. And then he just blows up off screen, and we see pieces of him fly out of a hallway. And I'm just like, what was the point of that? Like, what was he trying to do? It's like they are a good distance away from you. It's like, what was he trying to do? It's like, okay, I'm going to suicide bomb and take as many people with me, even though they are an extremely long distance. I probably won't get them, but still. It's like, what was the point? Like, that made no sense to me at all. And another one of his main henchmen is killed off during this giant battle at the end, where Egg Shen, who's played by Victor Wong, he helps. He brings in his gang of fighters to help Jack and Wong get the rest of the people back that were left behind the first time they broke into the facility. So they go back to finish this once and for all. There's this giant battle going on in this giant room, which is a very amazing set, by the way. It just screams 80s in the best way, though. And during this final fight, Wong gets into a fight with another one of the main bad guys who has this, like, he has really long black hair, and he's using and they're both using samurai swords, and I'm not kidding you, this bad guy is killed in like one of the most over-the-top ways imaginable. Like, he jumps up. I'm not kidding you. Let's forget about the death scene for a minute. I'm just going to talk about the fight scene itself. Like, there's literally scenes of them jumping at high distances back and forth for no reason. And then there's literally a scene where they both jump in the air and they're having a sword fight while they're in the air. It's so over the top. And then he jumps up, the main bad guy jumps up super high in the air, and he's flying through the air, heading right towards Wong, and he throws his blade in the air. It hits the bad guy. He goes flying into a sign, and then he just randomly blows up. like, why are all the bad guys blowing up? Like, what is happening? You know, it's just like, it's one of the most over the top deaths I've ever seen. But like, talking about it does not do any justice. You have to watch it for yourself. Like, no amount of me talking is gonna describe it. You just have to see it for yourself. And another thing, like, there's literally a bad guy in this film that has lightning powers, and at the very end, he's one of the last threats. So when the others are trying to escape the facility because they're underground, it's falling apart, like, they're in a hallway. This bad guy with the lightning powers, he slowly, I'm not kidding, he walks as slowly as a human could possibly walk, giving Jack and the others plenty of time to get away, and he's just standing there showing off his powers instead of, like, you know, doing something, killing them. He's just sitting there doing all these fancy moves instead of, you know, my guy, are you going to kill them, or are you just going to stand there and continuously show off your powers? Like, it makes absolutely no sense, like, at all. And then he follows the others, climbs up through the hole they're trying to climb into to get into a tunnel to escape. The minute he climbs up, they just drop a giant rock on him, and then he explodes for no reason. It's like, why are all the bad guys spontaneously combusting into fire or blowing up? Like, what the heck is going on? I'm like wondering, do they all have like C4 bombs strapped to themselves in the event? Okay, my weapons aren't working, they're getting away, I'm just gonna take myself along with them or something. It's like, I don't understand. But it's okay, I can look past it. But those are just some things that happen in this. I'm just like, what the heck is going on? But yeah, that's me kind of just going off of some of the things that happens in this that doesn't make any sense to me. But I still love this movie to death. And I'm actually going to take a minute here and give a friend of mine a shout out. So I have a great friend of mine. Her name is Gabby. I'm not going to say her last name just for, you know, privacy reasons. But her and I work together at a place called Oak Terrace outside my hometown. It's a golf resort, and Milligan's is the name of the restaurant that her and I worked at together. She was a waitress, and I was a dishwasher. And she is a fantastic friend of mine, and her girlfriend's name is Justice, and Justice has been showing her a lot of 80s films because Justice is a huge 80s fan, just like me. And I've met Justice. She's super nice, and her and I have talked about 80s films a lot. And she's trying to figure out what next 80s film she'll show Gabby. Like, Justice texted me not too long ago telling me that they actually just watched Breakfast Club, and now she doesn't know what to show her next. And I'm going to tell Justice, like, listen, you got to show Gabby Big Trouble in Little China. I think it's like one of the best 80s films ever made, and it's one of those films where you can just sit back and have an absolute blast. Watching it with friends, I think, would make it a lot better as well. It's impossible not to have a good time, you know, when you're watching this masterpiece of a film. So that's why I shout out to my friends Justice and Gabby. And I just want to say, I highly recommend this film. If you haven't seen it, I think this film is an 80s cheese fest in all the right ways. And I think John Carpenter did an amazing job directing this. And I think this is one of his best films. This film is up there with Christine and The Thing and the original Halloween. Carpenter has such an amazing catalog of films that he's helped create. And man, I love his catalog of films. And I give Big Trouble in Little China. Now, if we're talking about out of 10 here, I would have to give it probably around an 8 out of 10 because I love this film to death. Highly recommend it. So that is going to be my rating for this film. But that is my review of Big Trouble in Little China. I hope that you enjoyed this recording. And I just feel so honored that I was given a chance to talk about this film. I actually own this movie on Blu-ray, and whenever I'm not busy here at Easter, and I like to watch it just to lift up my spirits a little bit because at the time that I am recording this, it is midterms here at Eastern Illinois University, and the work has been piling up a lot. Like, I've been going through a lot of little mental health issues right now. Like my stress levels have been getting really bad. I've been having chest pains, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and I've been depressed a lot too. So I'm just dealing with all these things. But doing this podcast, again, to talk about these films has really helped combat, those feelings. And I love doing this show, and I will continue it. So I hope that you enjoyed this recording, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to my show. And until next time, I am DJ Apollo, and you are listening to the Tales of Music and Film.